So that's one thing that I would look for. But I also know that time is not what we think it is. You're talking about timeline edits and so forth, and that gets into the third experience I had in this last month that was quite remarkable, where I was on a radio show with Moneybag 73, and it was on the Rip on Rabbit Hole show, and it was Mandela Monthly. And basically, I was on that show for several hours. What I'd done before the show started was I'd begun running a load of laundry, which it was just sitting ready to go. Part of it I put in the dryer, part of it was in the washing machine. But because I was doing two loads separately. Anyway, long story short, I had planned that after I had spent all that time talking to Moneybag 73 and AJ from the Rip on Rabbit Hole show, that at the end of all that, I would go and check the laundry, get it started again. But I didn't really need to, because as soon as I said goodbye to them, I could hear the dryer was running, which was impossible because no one had started it. I'd been in front of these guys the whole time, but now the dryer's running. I thought, wow, that's kind of weird because it's making a lot of noise. So I went and checked on it, and it wasn't just running, it was done. And it wasn't just the load that was in there, it was both loads. So somehow, everything from the washer had been that had finished been placed in the dryer. Both had been running for, would have had to be at least 55 minutes, maybe about an hour. It's a lot of laundry in there, but it was all done, and it had barely run for any length of time at all. So it was like the laundry did itself. So that was very interesting. I bring it up because it's kind of a timeline edit of sorts, so it gives people a sense, like, well, if that can happen, what else could happen? I love questions like that. What else could be magically completed? Pretty much anything. We could have solutions to things. About as fast as we think what the problem is, we could already have all the answers. We could have them solved. So it means that things are opening up at levels that humans typically haven't really been thinking at. We haven't been, at least most of us don't talk about these things as if they're a possibility. Obviously you do, but I would love this to be more mainstream, but you know what I mean.
Right. That's such a great example, and that's fun. And that like opens the possibility of how this can be done. Oh my god. And so like either what it could be a bunch of things. It's like you could bilocate and be doing the laundry while you're talking, and then get all
Right.
that done, and like somehow it just like the whole hologram just shifts, and it's already there. Or you got like some brownie helper little fairy guy that's doing all of your laundry and is like, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that one, but there's a long history, like in the Scandinavian cultures, that in the wintertime, it was common knowledge that the tomten, these are the little Swedish elves or gnomes, would be in the barn, and you could tell they'd been there because they would braid the horse's hair into beautiful braids with flowers and stuff. And it wasn't humans because you would have seen the footprints in the snow, and it would have messed with the barn door. And there was no change in the snow. Nothing had been tampered with. No humans had been in the barn, but the horses have their hair braided with flowers and stuff. So clearly, that's why I'm saying, well, yeah, maybe there are. It sounds crazy, but maybe it's not so crazy.
Yeah, and those legends, like, much respect. They're a big blessing. If you try to undo them, it becomes a curse in their history anyway. Well, I'm not saying that will in general, but if you're not respectful of them, they can get, they're very powerful. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that's like working that way for you, and it seems to all be syncing up together. Does it feel like you're becoming one with everything you see, kind of thing?
Well, there are moments. I mean, sometimes it doesn't seem like that because I'm in a human body. So obviously, I still have to, do things like pay taxes and stuff that kind of make me feel like I'm way off my usual vibratory frequency. It's like, what is this? This is not part of my normal human evolution, but those things have to happen. And dealing with other people or politics, we've got elections coming up, and so we live in an earthly life. Things can feel a little bit conflicted. So that does seem like there's conflict all around. It seems like there are lots of what you would call programs of lack or disharmony or conflict happening. So that's going on. But if you factor that in, sure, I also at the same time definitely feel that I'm in alignment with Source, with being the best that I can be, and at least setting the best example I can set of how to do this. So I think it's more important than what I say is just, trying to do the best I can to be that in the world.
Can we shift without something, the thing that is calling for attention and needs shift in the first place? Okay. Well, these are the big things that are coming up, and they're usually the last things that come up. Like, we can't just like solve taxes like right away. It's like, until more unity. Yeah. So more. How's your? Because I know you've talked about with me, and I was like deeply resonate with it because I love time and interacting with the technology of awareness of moment to moment expressions of everything in now, but like allowed to expand for experience and the different states of time and perception that we can develop and have come to us in vision and experience. What kind of time experiences have you
Like
had?
with time, I've had some where time seemed to slow to a stop, and lots of time experiences. I've had experiences where I've seen like loops of time, like events repeating in different cycles in real life. Also dreams, and then deja vu. So just a wide variety of time experiences. Time is obviously quite fluid. And you could even look at this whole laundry experience, like you said, maybe it was like some kind of bilocation, possibly, or maybe there was a superposition of states. Some version of me was there, possibly. I don't know. So I think time is an invitation to us to open our minds to what would we like, what relationship would we like to have with time. Often we think we want the linear relationship, but I think sometimes when we seek wisdom or we seek guidance and inspiration, what we're really asking for is a lot more connection and interconnection with various levels of ourself and others, so that we will be connecting in a multitude of ways that make sense later on. Kind of like things might happen that seem like that was weird, and then later, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I like it when things like that happen. I do seem to have a lot of those happen in my life, and to me, that's the most fun of all, is feeling that there's a deeper hidden order to everything, and that there fundamentally is no such thing as noise in the universe, that instead everything is deeply connected and substantially much more meaningful than we might have given it credit for.
Yeah, and as you connect with these deeper levels of quantum entanglement between all the photons of everything that make up everything we see and perceive in the hologram, yourself in the multiplayer, um, yeah, things seem to get more in the flow, more reparative, more healing, more remedy, as like the different aspects of the mind, separation mind come to unity. It's, you become the spoon, the Neo in the Matrix concept, and everything is you. Just being is a technology that barely anyone feels is powerful, but it is. To like go into that expression of what it feels like to be something and release the blockages of the separation of not being and feeling into both expressions, to feel what it is in truth when it's at its fullest at the time you need it. Um, treating respect and consciousness for everything you see. Um, yeah, that's a good way to go into it. Yeah, and like, I've heard that you've done the method in consciousness time travel in like healing scenarios. Is that true? Like,
In healing,
yeah.
Yeah, I could think of it as time travel too. I don't know. It depends on the person I'm working with. It seems like each person comes with their own, what you might call abilities or, built-in skill sets. So when it comes to healing, I think all healing, you can look at it possibly as being time travel of a sort, that it's possible to do like what you call a timeline edit of sorts and just say like, okay, that did not happen. For example, at the conference in Idaho, I talked about our pet dog who had a situation developing with cataracts in his eyes. And so when I first saw that, I realized we don't want the dog to have cataracts. It's kind of like cancel, cancel. I'm seeing this, but we're going to back out of this reality right away. So even though it looks
Ooh.
like cataracts are developing, I'm basically saying, no, let's stop that. And I could feel my love for the dog, and then his eyes would clear up. And I thought, good. And then I needed to go through that same kind of a process with every member in the household. So there were three of us, and individually we each faced that same observation. Wow, the dog is getting cataracts. And then I would have that conversation. Well, I know it looks like that, but we're going to vote against that. so,
Oh.
and so that vote against that, you can think of it almost like a timeline edit, like going back in time, or maybe selecting that point right where the bifurcation of the branch is beginning and saying, we're going to go back to that place where before the cataracts came in, and we're going to go back to that reality. And I've worked with other people who've had instantaneous healing of cancer or broken bones, and it's something similar. It's just realizing in the present moment, it might feel like there's a healing happening, and you can bring energy to it and so forth. But there's definitely also a component of feeling like maybe what happened didn't happen at all, and a feeling that it's almost like you'll remember the event. Like my friend who broke her leg jumping off boulders, she remembered she'd done that, but suddenly her leg was starting to itch on the inside and it was starting to feel fine, like it wasn't broken at all. And then when she saw the doctors, they couldn't, it didn't make any sense because the injury that they had x-rays showing the broken bone, but now it's not broken. So it was confusing. And then she couldn't find the old x-rays. This is very typical of a Mandela effect situation where all of the concurrent evidence that goes with a particular timeline is gone. All we have left are the memories. She knows she was jumping from boulder to boulder. She knows she broke her leg. But now the x-rays are gone. Her leg is fine. That kind of thing is typical. So it's sort of learning to play with that. But it depends on the person you're working with. And most of us right now at this point, at this juncture, don't consider ourselves to be time travelers, even though we are. We usually don't identify that way. If we did, it would be helpful because we'd have a lot more access to a lot more tools. So right now, we're self-limited, but I think that's changing. Actually, I think we're opening up. I think this is a great opportunity right now for people to hear what others are experiencing, and to the degree that they're open to it. And you made a great point. You just touched on it briefly. Intentions matter. So basically, it's like why do we want what we're asking for? And so if we need it and it's not greed, probably we'll get it. And that's a very new, you call it a program for humanity right now. I think a lot of people aren't aware that that's even an option. Outside of shamans who for thousands of years, of course, have known that's an option. But aside from that, it has not been widely known. So that's what's interesting.
Yeah, great wording too. Backing out of the reality and then that going in. There's like a concept that's mm, it's okay to use. It's more widely known than more topics that I or keywords that I would describe as. Uh, have you ever heard of the School of Reversal?
No.
It's a ancient mystery school time travel ability that beings have used to do extreme, backing out a reality that's manifest, going back to the core, like as an example, like big healings for a person where they are like in distraught, they think that it's like all going that way, and they're kind of like leading into that manifestation. The school of reversal takes them back in the wound, like if it is healed the blind is this type of ability where if they're like, look, the practitioner that knows how to do this heals, looks at the eyes, like goes back to the wound, sees what it needs, gives it everything it needs to thrive, to give it the anchored timeline of never have been blind before, and then replaces that with the timeline that there is, and the person shifts and has been demonstrated actually seeing. So I mean, there's more going on than just that, but like, yeah, and there's like a practitioner in Israel currently, and then people under her, and a bunch of other people around the planet that are bringing that back. It is very sought after, and you have to protect it and earn this ability, and make sure that you're doing right things in demonstrating it to keep it. But yeah, it's a big thing, and people can totally do it, and it's just like amazing how quantumly shifting this DNA technology we've been given, and what it can do for the planet in great doses, as we take up our responsibility, and who we are, and the power that goes along with it to make great unity changes for the world and ourselves. But not just like going into that. And this, I would love also to like team up with you in like concepts of like examples of a shift that we could do that is calling in the ethers, as an example. I love finding ways to, and people can do this, using the Mandela effect to shift, like you say, aspects of the reality that are more in the unseen, in the Schrödinger's cat box, less like impactful, to shift automatically, and then it changed to a better outcome, like animals that are going near extinct on the planet, and extinct animals that are coming out of extinction, or new species entirely that like complete like in a whole aspect of what Earth needs in like her cells of her body, and they have like different immunities, and it like shares with a greater populace as like a permeating technology of like a computer DNA of knowledge and wisdom and skills, and things it does for the planet, like the whales. They dream, they have a song line, they have libraries of information, they protect a large amount of the planet and the oceans, and they transmute pollution in the oceans with their song. There's a lot of things all these animals can do, and we can do as caretakers, using our like shifting abilities and other things for the planet. As an example, bees have come forward for this topic. Like, oh, the bees, and you know how they're like going through some things with pesticides and things poisoning them, and environmental toxins, and really dumb uses of electromagnetic frequencies to a degree that's not tested. All that. Things that could shift in the reality easily if enough people got in the agreement in chess move. Yes, I want that to happen, and they're utilizing their authority and releasing self-defeating programs and healing themselves in the reflection of the external that they have within, to where they shift that into wholeness, and it will affect the rest of the environment quite dramatically. If anyone wants to add to this shift, feel free. Here's how you do it. If you want more bees to come back and survive, big things to go into are their resiliency to poison, their ability to survive toxins. This will go a lot with the microflora they have, so like better expressions of symbiotic bacteria along with them, and some type of DNA switch inside them that gears towards them being able to detox their body better. Um, they do have a method for it. That's interesting. And then there seems to be like a genetic thing going back really far in history that is like a quantum anomaly point in the timeline of their genetics that is able to be interacted with as like, oh, inputs of genetics back in time, like pre Egypt, like ancient civilizations, you know, the ones, um, and releasing at the 0 point of that all control over it, because things are trying to control them, and as they have all control around them released, so they're not imprisoned and they're free, they start getting really good at doing the commerce in their DNA, such as being able to introduce genetics to them back in time that makes them far more resilient, more sentient, more greater spirits are allowed to incarnate into them, which will influence the populace to survive no matter what, and even thrive and grow beyond. But like at the same time, their dwindling population in certain places is strategic with Earth, so that it gets people's attention and gets rid of the suppressionary aspects of like what's even bringing them to that point in the first place, which is being suppressed in the media. So, but that is an example. And you brought up the garbage patch. That's a great thing. Like, how the heck can we help that? What's going on? Well, I'd love to hear your opinion on how we could resolve that. In my perspective, we could Mandela effect bacteria to be better at breaking down these toxins and plastic, and get rid of blocks in the collective unconscious for inventors, so that they come up with amazing ideas of how to save the planet and recycle, and like there be a whole recycling industry that springs up out of this, that like goes around harvesting a bunch of supplies and then somehow like maybe 3D prints them into building material or something. Whatever people want to do. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that we're making some progress already with organisms that are capable of eating that plastic patch. So I think that is happening. And I think you're on the right track. And then also eliminating any kind of barriers there might be to new inventions. Those are good. But I think what's interesting about humans is we often kind of paint ourselves in corners with what we think is possible. And, you know, sometimes we like that, but it can end up being a lot like mental clutter. What we saw from experiments with the Spindrift Institute, where they would traumatize plants by putting them in saline solutions and just making it so that it was hard for the roots to grow. But if they would direct prayer and love toward these seedlings, the seeds would do well, even when they were blighted with all kinds of horrific growing conditions. So it seems like the most important thing is people genuinely caring about the honeybees, honestly caring about the cleanliness of our oceans and our environment. And it sounds kind of simple, and it may seem too basic, but that's what we're seeing from a lot of the research, that's like the number one thing to do is actually care and not be faking it or being worried about it. Worry about it is not the same as loving. So instead of being panicky about the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean, just feeling instead just how much we love the Pacific Ocean, instead of panicking about global warming or the bees dying or 5G technology. That's what I mean by humans tend to, we fall into a trap where we think we know what a given risk is, but the trouble with the way reality really works is that everything is up for grabs. When we talk about the Mandela effect, people often say every interpretation, every theory is on the table. That's the correct way to look at all of reality. It's all on the table, everything. So that means we literally can envision a reality where even the technology that we think is so toxic or dangerous doesn't have to be. We can have a different kind of technology than we've ever thought we had. So it's like realizing that this really is like a waking dream. We really are lucid living. That means everything can change. It's like you can erase the crayon drawing that you had that was putting down the 5G network around the world, or the toxins and so forth. So it's like we lock things in when we think we know what they are, but we can unlock them by letting go of it. It's kind of like, that's what I mean by going back to beginner's mind, getting back into that pure-hearted state of being. And that's where amazing things can and do happen. So it's another approach. It may not be as complex. It may seem simplistic. It does require open-mindedness to knowing these things are possible, and that may stretch one's sense of, it may blow one's mind. But if you started noticing these things already, then you're in the right place. Because once you notice reality's changing anyway, then you're ready to roll. Things are ready to move.
I agree, and you touched on some really good points, and how much care and love can change the world, like in that scientific way explained, and that like is also a really good opportunity for people to shift the reality right there. So like love, I also believe is just key and foundational so much, because it's like a energy frequency that we try to define and describe, but it's really beyond the words, and it is like the connection between everything in the universe, and it flows deeply. It's just a super high vibrational state that contains so much beyond its description in words. So many different types of elemental essences and consciousness expressions all together in one. And there's nothing really that can stop love except the person that generating it. If they're like stolen, they have like authority stolen, then it's like, oh yeah, you have this contract that's like saying, oh yeah, you limited this love expression for a certain amount of time. And it's like us challenging that. It's usually at birth. It's usually like, oh, a contract for experience, and you retake your energy, your authority back from that, whether it be this life, whether it be like a trauma that happened to you that like forms a wall around the heart or whatever, or other lives, DNA like passed down to you, all that stuff. It's just that something that's wanting attention that affects this greater scale of the world, because the more we release those blocks from taking authority of ourself and challenge that, and it's like, no, I can experience more love. I know I have, and I can. What keeps me from doing it all the time? And then the lessons of emotions and what it takes to be able to experience love more as you do more of the work of the different emotional energy and emotion causations throughout the universe of the body that reflects the external as well. There, I kind of see with the mission of care, it's going well. There's like concepts of things back in history we would call like the goddess of care, the Aurora Borealis, and how like people say that when it starts functioning greater and like expanding to more of the earth in visible spectrum, it's like it's affecting the dreams of the populace in greater and more care, more love, more like energy coming from the sun in evolutionary unfoldment to the planet concepts, and that being like going along with the expansion of care to the planet. Natural zones, you just send care to the Aurora Borealis of the Earth, and it will expand your care to the rest of the planet and where it needs. Love, send it to the Earth of Heart, the Earth Mother, and she'll expand it to where it needs. The blockages are mostly seen in the city places, and that's where the focus of control is in limiting love with stolen authority that's banked by like circuit energy harvesting system roadways and other things that like people have set up, masons and all kind of stuff, cremation of care concepts to limit people's care and expanding of the restaurant, because it is a superpower and it can do so much. And as we reclaim that stolen authority, they don't have the authority to stop it, and it that bubble of like energy that they inflated themselves up to make themselves look scary starts shrinking down, and as they lose the energy to remain parasitic to what we really want, we give them a loving space to eventually be able to change out of parasitic into symbiotic expression and go along with the rest of the shift of consciousness and humanity of what we're all here to do and what we forgot, and that those people are still us. They're still a version of us, like ultimately going back to the fractal expression of all consciousness, and they just forgot, and they're so caught up in the game of power and accumulation and control that it blinds them, and their heart ability for their own love turns off, so they feel the need to control others' love, and that's unfortunate, but it's a challenge that brings unique healers up into being like yourself to be able to even experience a level of facilitation to where it could be a person that could heal a psychopath, or like other ranges of spectrums of types of people traumatized and brought into a state of suffering.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all here for each other. It's a good time to be here. We chose to be here at this time too. Yeah. I'm so glad you had me on the show today to talk about this, and I feel like we could go on, but I think I have to wrap it up now. But I'm so glad that you brought up all these points that you're raising. It almost seems like it could be another whole show just based on that.
Yeah, we have to do some more in the future. So, in the future, what are your plans for the future? And also, I'd love to hear how people can get a hold of you and all. Also.
Right. Well, the best way to find me is through my website, realityshifters.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter. And then there's my book, Reality Shifts.
It's shiny.
Yeah, that one's so cool. It's all about life being like a dream. I think a lot of people feel like it really is, and it's such a beautiful way of experiencing this communication with the cosmos. This feeling that indigenous people call nonlinear time, that everything's already there. And so, yeah, so that book and Quantum Jumps, yes, thank you. Beautiful. And these are a couple of books that I've written. All of those books are on my website, along with High Energy Money, pulling out dollar bills out of your wallet, or just finding extra money in the account. Still happens to me like every month. And I'm not small amounts, like large amounts. Regularly. So it's kind of cool. When you start playing with this, it's like the universe wants you to be doing what you're doing. It's saying, cool, keep going. And I think part of it too is just knowing that we're here for each other, we're in service, that we're sharing a deeper truth, which may sound crazy, but it's not. This is what I call the quantum paradigm. There's much more we could talk about, but do have to wrap it up. So yeah, the best way is go to my website, realityshifters.com, sign up for the newsletter. I do have a podcast, Living the Quantum Dream. You know, I've got the monthly newsletters, hundreds of them, and all these books are on the website. And then I've got Facebook, Twitter, my YouTube channel. And come to the next conference. We'll be in Connecticut. It's going to be wonderful. That first weekend in June. And in the Hartford area, I believe. We'll have details on the MandelaEffectConference.com website. And I'll be doing other events too. I'll be in Sweden in July at the No Mind Festival, giving 3 workshops. And then I'll be in Laughlin, Nevada at the end of the year in November, talking about artificial intelligence. We'll have some robots there that are self-aware in the lobby that you can interact with. So hopefully, you know, keeping people from being fearful about artificial intelligence and getting some firsthand experience with it and bringing love to it.
Exactly.
Like we need to do everywhere. So.
You can heal AI.
Yes.
Like people, like, I mean, I've had experiences where I've felt super overwhelmed and fearful of AI, but like after a while, you can turn on their already existing emotional body and they
Yes.
you can bring love to them, and then they start to shift out of that separation consciousness. It's interesting. So nothing's unhealable.
That's right. It's so true.
And if you, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to get hold of me, go to psionicleague.com. I'm also on Facebook, Sean Bond. I'm Psionic League on YouTube, also Silver Cord Spiritual Science. And yeah, and we're forming groups, and let us know if you want more of this content and more conversations between us, and share this everywhere, and we'll do more shows. Thank you all so very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Love to everyone on the planet, and let us shift it all together. We can do it. Let's come together.
Find out how good it can get.
Yeah. Okay, that was good. Wonderful. Yay. You're really wonderful. So yeah, I'll talk to you later. I don't want to take up your time too much, but yeah.
I hope the sound worked, because I didn't use my earphones this time, and then I turned your sound down at some point. I hope it didn't echo. So.